Tear up that 5 years plan you wrote last year's. Stop writing in journals where you keep begging the universe for what you want. That habit is not making you stronger. In many cases, it is quietly making you weaker. It trains your mind to depend on a future that does not even exist yet. You have probably been told many times that success starts with a clear goal, a shiny destination, something fixed on the horizon that you must chase. But pause for a moment and honestly examine your life. Has chasing goals truly made you feel powerful, or has it made you anxious? Has it given you control over your life, or has it turned you into someone who depends on an outcome you cannot fully control? This is where the thinking of Niccolò Machiavelli becomes interesting. He understood human nature in a very realistic way. He knew that when you openly declare your intentions, you do more than just speak. You reveal your direction, your desires, and your weaknesses. And here is something people rarely admit. There are individuals who, consciously or subconsciously, prefer to see you fail, not because they hate you directly, but because your progress reminds them of their own stagnation. When you loudly announce your goals, you give such people a clear target to judge, doubt, or quietly hope against. Machiavelli once advised that a ruler should never fully reveal his true intentions until the moment of action is already in motion. He wrote that one must learn to be a great feigner and dissembler. In simple terms, he meant that strategy often requires silence. So instead of constantly announcing your goals, remove them from public display, remove them from casual conversations, stop explaining your plans to everyone, move quietly. This is not only about secrecy, it is also about conserving mental energy. Talking too much about what you plan to do often creates the illusion of progress, while actual action is where real power is built. Think about it this way. If someone is building something highly sensitive, they do not gather a crowd to discuss every detail. They focus, plan carefully, and work with precision. The world only notices the result, not the preparation. Adopt that mindset. Rather than operating with a loud external goal, develop a quiet internal agenda. A goal usually sounds like, I want a promotion, but a strategic agenda sounds like, I will become so valuable, so reliable, and so strategically positioned that decision makers will naturally depend on me. Notice the difference in mindset. The goal sounds like a request. The agenda feels like a plan. When you operate from a hidden agenda instead of a loud goal, your behavior naturally changes. In meetings, you are less concerned about being noticed for the sake of attention. Instead, you observe more carefully. You listen more. You analyze patterns. You understand dynamics that others are too distracted to see. It is not about arrogance. It is about awareness. You begin to feel like you are participating in a deeper game, one that many people do not even realize has already started. Now, let us address something uncomfortable. Many people today are mentally soft, not because they are incapable, but because they avoid discomfort at all costs. Machiavelli himself experienced extreme hardship. He was exiled. He lost his political position. He was humiliated and even tortured. Yet he did not collapse under those circumstances. Instead, during exile, he wrote The Prince, a work that became one of the most influential political texts in history. He did not achieve his original political goals in the way he expected, but he achieved something larger. He shaped how future generations would understand power and strategy. He transformed his suffering into intellectual output. So ask yourself honestly, what are you doing with your own struggles? Are you allowing them to weaken you over time, or are you converting them into insight, discipline, and growth? Modern culture often encourages constant self-comfort. We are told to always be gentle with ourselves, to prioritize comfort, and to avoid pressure. Rest is important, yes, but excessive softness can slowly reduce personal standards. Machiavelli asked a famous question, is it better to be loved or feared? His answer was balanced but realistic. Ideally, a leader should be both. However, if one must choose, it is safer to be feared than loved, because fear tends to be more consistent than affection. Now apply that idea inward, not toward others, but toward yourself. Most people claim they love themselves, and that love often shows up as self-indulgence. They allow themselves to oversleep. They allow unhealthy habits. They postpone important work because they do not feel like it. This kind of self-love, when unbalanced, quietly leads to mediocrity. What if instead you developed a form of disciplined self-respect? A healthy fear of becoming the version of yourself that wastes potential. Not fear in a destructive sense, but a strong internal standard that you refuse to betray. You become accountable to your own expectations. Yes, this sounds strict, but consider the results of constant softness in modern life. Weaker discipline, shorter attention spans, and emotional fragility. A Machiavellian ruler brings order to chaos. In the same way, you are the ruler of your own mind, yet for many people, the mind feels like a kingdom in rebellion. Impulses demand comfort, cravings demand instant pleasure, distractions demand attention. If you try to gently negotiate with every impulse, they will overpower your long-term vision. Instead, you must establish internal order. For example, instead of setting a vague goal like "I want to lose weight," adopt a stronger internal principle, such as personal physical sovereignty. That means your body decisions are guided by discipline, not temporary cravings. Your cravings, in this sense, act like internal forces that attempt to hijack your potential. When your standards are firm, you stop negotiating with impulses and start directing them. As this internal discipline grows, something interesting happens. You no longer rely heavily on external motivation. You do not need constant inspirational content or motivational quotes to act. You act because it is necessary, because the alternative is losing control over your own behavior. And here lies a paradox. When you become more disciplined with yourself, you actually experience more freedom. Discipline is a form of freedom. When you can command yourself to complete difficult tasks consistently, you gain a sense of power that external goals alone cannot provide. You walk into environments with quiet confidence because you know one important truth. If you can control yourself, you can handle external situations more effectively. Many people struggle to control even small daily habits, and yet they expect to control negotiations, careers, or long-term outcomes. This is why establishing internal laws is essential. Create personal principles such as, "I do not complain unnecessarily. I do not announce plans prematurely. I focus on execution rather than constant explanation. I analyze criticism instead of reacting emotionally." When you break your own standards, hold yourself accountable. When you uphold them, acknowledge your consistency. Be fair with yourself, but also be firm. Now the practical question arises: if we reduce our obsession with goals, what replaces them? A more strategic framework can be built on three core pillars: positioning, leverage, and adaptability. First, positioning. Instead of constantly asking, "What do I want to achieve?" ask, "Where should I place myself?" If you want financial growth, position yourself in environments where money is actively being created and exchanged. Learn how people in those environments think, communicate, and make decisions. If you want strength, place yourself in environments that challenge your body and discipline regularly. Over time, success becomes a natural outcome of consistent exposure to the right environment. Success is often less about speed and more about location. Second, leverage. Traditional goals follow a linear mindset. Effort equals direct result, but leverage creates exponential results. Machiavelli understood alliances, influence, and indirect power. He did not rely only on personal force. He used systems, relationships, and strategic advantages. In your own life, ask, how can technology assist my work? How can collaboration multiply my results? How can I use available resources intelligently instead of relying only on raw effort? This is not laziness. It is strategic efficiency. It is preserving energy for actions that truly matter. Third, adaptability. Each day presents different conditions, energy levels, opportunities, challenges, and unexpected events. A rigid mind struggles in changing environments. A strategic mind observes and adjusts. If your energy is low, focus on planning and analysis. If your energy is high, prioritize execution. If one path is blocked, explore alternative routes. Like water, adapt to the shape of the situation without losing forward movement. When you operate this way, the emotional burden of failure decreases. You are not locked into a single rigid outcome. You are continuously adjusting your strategy. Delay is no longer seen as defeat. It becomes time for refinement. As you adopt this approach, your presence changes subtly. You appear less desperate and more composed. You no longer seem like someone chasing validation. Instead, you appear focused and self-directed. People are naturally drawn to calm certainty. In a world where many are anxious about long-term plans, the individual with a clear system stands out. You become steady, observant, and intentional. While others loudly discuss distant ambitions, you quietly build consistent progress in the present. You stop relying on fantasies about the future and start gaining satisfaction from controlled action in the present moment. Each action becomes deliberate. Each silence becomes intentional. Each setback becomes useful information for adjusting your next move. This approach is often misunderstood. It is not glamorous. It can feel isolating, and it requires letting go of the expectation that someone else will rescue your situation. No external goal will save you. No perfect moment will arrive to transform your life automatically. Real change comes from self-command, not wishful thinking. Understanding these ideas is only the beginning. The mind naturally drifts back toward old habits. It will try to return to comfort, to emotional reactions, and to impulsive decision-making. That is why mental vigilance is necessary. You must guard the throne of your mind by monitoring your thoughts, reactions, and patterns. One of the most dangerous traps for any strategist is emotional leakage. This occurs when emotions begin to dictate decisions instead of informed reasoning. Machiavelli consistently warned about emotional impulsiveness in leadership and strategy. When emotions dominate strategy, judgment becomes clouded and manipulation becomes easier. In the next stage of learning, the focus shifts to emotional detachment, not emotional suppression, but emotional control, because true mental stillness is deeper than simple calmness, and most people who believe they are calm have never truly practiced controlled detachment. That is where the next lesson begins.